Welcome to Figure Eight, where we feature inspiring stories of women entrepreneurs who have grown their businesses to 7 and 8 figures revenue. If you're in the mix of growing a bigger business, these stories are for you. Join us as we explore where the tough spots are, how to overcome them, and how to prepare yourself for the next portion of the climb. I'm your host, Julie Ellis. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and a growth and leadership coach who co-founded, grew, and exited an 8-figure business. This led me to exploring why some women achieve great things. And that led to my book, Big Gorgeous Goals. Let's explore the systems, processes, and people that help us grow our businesses to new heights. If you're interested in growing your business, this podcast will help. Now, let's get going. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Figure Eight. This is a very special episode today. I'm Julie Ellis, I'm your host, and we have reached 51 episodes. So I can hardly believe we're here to start with. 50 conversations, 50 stories, 50 opportunities to learn and grow together. And so today feels kind of special. I want to take a moment to reflect on what's shifted for me over these 50 episodes, what I have learned from these conversations, and where we're headed next. Most importantly, I want to coach you a little. I want to invite you to reflect, take stock, and to posture yourself for what is next. Whether you're new here or whether you've been with me since day one, thank you for being a part of this journey. Let's dive in. Let's start off with talking about the power of the pause. And I'm a big fan of pausing and reflecting on what's happening and why. And it isn't just about being nostalgic. It's about being strategic. When we pause and reflect and look back, it reminds us of where we were, who we were, and how far we've come. Whether we're still aligned with our deepest, biggest, most gorgeous goals. It surfaces patterns and blind spots, shifts in our identity, and it helps us course correct before we drift too far off the path. Over the past 50 episodes, I've spoken to women doing transformational work, scaling, leaping, changing industries, navigating exits, growing teams, and redesigning their lives. Through their stories and my own, I've seen that success doesn't come from avoiding struggle. It comes from our ability to pause, to reflect, and to adapt. As I approached this milestone, I felt the pull to pause myself. Growth isn't just forward motion, it owes itself to look back and reflect as well. So today, I'm going to share with you the 5 biggest lessons that have emerged from all these conversations. 2 solo episodes, 48 interviews with amazing women entrepreneurs doing all kinds of things based on the needs they see in the world. And when I started to sit down and think about what I wanted to say on this milestone of all these interviews and all of these amazing entrepreneurs, I reflected on the facts and, some of the stats aren't that great. So 2% of women's owned businesses, 2% of businesses started by women ever achieve $1 million or more a year in revenue. In Canada, 4% of venture capital goes to women-founded ventures. In the US, it's about 2.5%. Angel money is a little bit better if you're getting angels to invest in your business. It's around 25%. But all of those reasons were the things that brought me to the idea that in my small corner of the world, I could tell the stories of women entrepreneurs who were building big, beautiful businesses, who were unapologetic in what they were chasing, and to, show the way for women who are wishing, dreaming, and hoping to achieve that, to show them it's possible, to show them all of the different women from different backgrounds and parts of the world who have done amazing things with their businesses. And so here, on the 51st episode, I really wanted to look at those. What are the lessons? What are the themes? What commonalities came out of the conversations that we have had until now? And they've been so interesting because I think they're the lessons that continue to shape how I show up, how I lead, and how I support women like you, my audience, who have been supporting me by listening to all these episodes. So, with that, let's talk about the lessons. So, the first lesson I want to bring to you is that leadership is learned through letting go. And, when we start businesses, I do say quite often that none of us ever start businesses because we want 50 people reporting to us. And the journey of growing through being a solopreneur, having one or two people on your team, to having a very large team of people is a journey of leadership as much as it is a journey of scaling and growing. And so you've got to figure out how to do less, how to delegate more, how to delegate well. And you spend a lot of your time then managing. And whereas in the early days you're a doer, you're doing everything, you're trying to create strategy, you're trying to you're doing all of the execution, and you're really hoping that things stick. And in the later years, as the business gets more mature and gets bigger and you have a bigger team, you need to become the designer of your business. You are the strategist, you are the person who is setting the rhythm and moving the team forward, and all of the pieces that come with that. And that is a very, very different feeling to the early days where it's like a really long to-do list. And in fact, I often think about when I have a really long to-do list and I'm executing on a lot of tasks, what am I ignoring? What strategy piece or really important part of the business that only I can make the difference in am I ignoring at that point in time? And so when I think through these things about leadership, I think about Hillary Parnell way back in the early days of the podcast. And she has a really, really successful dance studio that has many programs that she's brought in house, many different streams of revenue. And she talked about how for years she thought she was the only one who should be making the fall schedule for her business. And it consumed 2 weeks of her life. And one day she kind of got to asking herself, like, why am I the best person to do this? Like, I don't possess any special amount of skill. What if I hand this off and let someone on my team do it? What would that look like? And it is that interesting place of, I think that I saw over and over again the thread or the theme or the echoing call from all these different women that I talked to was, I need to hand things off because there are more important jobs for me to do. And, Marla Coffin and I talked about, she realized if she wanted her businesses to grow without her, she has to really, really figure out what only she can do and hand off everything else. And I think that's such a smart, smart way of looking at how you're going to scale up and scale yourself. And that's one great strategy is putting someone in to really run the day to day, and you becoming that strategist, the overseer, the setting of the pace and the goals and the rhythm that a business needs to keep in order to be successful. I think that that's a really important part. And I talk in the book and in the workbook about how there's a lot of skills that no one ever teaches us, right? Things nobody taught me as I became an entrepreneur. And one of the things was, how to delegate really well and really effectively. And I dedicated part of the book and the workbook to tools for entrepreneurs because it just isn't, you become this micromanager because you're just not letting go. and you're not letting the team, you're not setting the team up for success, and nor are you letting them be successful by the way that you're approaching this. And so I think that it really is important that you need to think about, like, we really need to step up as leaders when we start letting go of the reins of control and become culture of accountability. And we have teams that are reaching for their big gorgeous goals. It's not just about my big gorgeous goal. It's about how I cascade that down through the team, and they all become invested in reaching for those bigger things. And Erica and I, when in Erica McKay's episode, we talked about how stepping out of the doing zone can feel risky. Like, what if the team drops the ball? What if they don't do it as well as I did it? What if they don't understand? And it's where, I feel like we're handing over with checkpoints and with accountability of for the person who's taking the task to understand that there's a high level of expectation, but that you also are setting the right checkpoints for check-ins, conversation, questions, clarifications, all of the things that happen along the way to teaching someone how to do these jobs. And Erica McKay also said she felt like the only way she could scale in her mind was she needed to become the architect and not the operator of her business. And so I would say to you, if you're overwhelmed, um, you start asking yourself, what am I doing that somebody else could do? What can I hand off? How can I hand it off? Where am I needed most in this business? What are the things that I am truly the only person who can do them? And that's where you can start to sort of divide. I mean, I think another potential way of looking at it is, what are the tasks that I'm doing right now that I could pay somebody, like, you're doing low wage tasks. You need to do the $100 an hour tasks, not the $20 an hour tasks. So how do you start shedding those and lifting yourself up to do more valuable work for the business? Um, Lesson number 2. Reinvention is required even after big success. And it is the theory of, what got you here won't get you there. The skills that you have, that you've honed, are constantly evolving, and we need to evolve as people in order for us to keep expanding. This conversation came up over and over again. It's certainly part of my story. When I left Mabel's Labels and I got really stuck, I wasn't really thinking about reinventing myself. And certainly that's what it turned to over the course of time. And, here I sit a decade out from selling the business, just about. In 6 weeks from when this episode comes out, it will be 10 years since we sold our business. And it took me a good amount of time to figure out that reinvention was required for me. And I sort of didn't know how to begin. I hesitated a lot. I got really stuck. And I think it's this idea that you need to evolve to keep expanding, and you need to add new things into your life sort of strategically. I mean, I think that when you exit your business, it really is something that requires you to think about what you're going to replace it with and how you're going to want to work. Because I think I didn't have that. And, I think in the episode where I interviewed Mandy Friend Gigliotti, we talked about how you have to add before you subtract, because selling your business and walking out the front door forever, which I did 6 months after we sold, is a huge subtract. You're missing part of your identity. The people that you worked with every day for, in my case, over 13 years were, busy with their heads down, still working on the business. And I was not in that space anymore. And so it was a really big subtract. And so when Mandy and I talked about that, I thought it was a really key ingredient of how do you add before you subtract? What is it you're going to add? you need to be intentional about it because it's you can't just wait for it to come. You have to actually be intentional about getting on the path to making it happen. When I had my conversation with Sarah Michelle Bowes, she said she thought exiting her business would be the finish line, but instead it's the start of a new question, the next era, a new race that you might be running. And so you really do need to think about it. And like me, when the deal closed, I thought I had landed. Like I thought it was the beginning of a new era, but instead I found myself stuck on that plateau, and getting off of it was really hard. I had to ask, who am I now and what do I really want? And so if you are facing reinvention, I would really encourage you to, spend that time reflecting, get out into nature, do something inspiring, go and volunteer. There's so many places that need help in the world that, we can make ourselves occupied while we gain new perspectives and really think about what we want next. And so I think this is this idea of like Anya Lev talking to me about like she needed to reinvent her identity as the owner, um, but as a leader. It's not just enough to own the business and to be there and be in charge. You actually need to lead, and you need to really step into that. And mm, and so I feel like the big takeaway here is, you never really arrive somewhere. There's not a big arrival. You just you're realigning and reinventing and rolling forward into new things. And I don't know that that ever ends. I think it's something that will take all of us forward forever. Lesson number 3 is belief shifts precede business shifts. So if we are stuck in our beliefs, um, we will struggle to shift our businesses and make the transformations that are necessary, because a transformation always starts on the inside. It's our belief system, our confidence, our identity. Um, and then, once the shift begins within, it becomes external, and then we can shift. And so, I saw over and over again in my interviews in the podcast over time, people who had internal belief shifts or major life moments that caused them to have the reflection that then pushed them into business. People like Ariane Ashley, she had a health transformation that fueled a business idea. And, she already worked in wellness, and so it really fueled her to go out and start her own business and get something going that was really quite different than what she had done before. Um, Lori Rogers talked about how she rewired her mindset through using sticky notes and positive intentions, and what a real difference that makes. And thinking about Mandy Friend Gigliotti, who I mentioned earlier, I mean, she said, once you get out of production and, whatever production looks like to you in your business, is it selling? Is it doing? Is it, all the different pieces that go in? But once you get out of your value being added that way, then it's all about leadership. And when those skills are all you've got, you realize if you haven't built belief, you're not ready. So, how do we build belief in ourselves that will allow us to shift our leadership and make an impact in the businesses that we have? And I think the takeaway there really is that your business can only grow as far as your mindset's going to let it. And so if we are holding our business down, holding it back because of the way that we operate, we are going to continue to struggle. So I believe that we all need to reflect on, how am I holding myself back? How am I holding my business back? And what do I need to consider and shift? Lesson number 4: visibility isn't vanity, it's a leadership tool. I think that, showing up for yourself and talking about your business, it's not self promotion. It is service and it's amplification. So I think about, we're all in envy of people who show up very smooth and polished and really promote their business and speak well about it. But that's not really been my comfortable place. It is to show up and do that sort of thing. And so I am encouraging you because it is service, it is amplification. Your business needs you. It's part of being the leader your business needs. And when I talked with Anna Via McLean, we talked about, she said, when she shifted into that CEO role, she realized that visibility wasn't about her, it was about growth. She needed to be visible and out there in the world in order for her business to benefit. And I think that that is a really, really important point. We need to step outside of our comfort zone a little bit. If that's not where it is, you're going to find you have to step out of your comfort zone somewhere. So whether it's in the visibility area, whether it's in finance, whether it's in operations, you're going to have to push yourself on some level somewhere. And if this is it, I think it's realizing, like Tara Stubbins, that you have a story to tell and that leaders need to be visible in order to lead. They talk about the different kinds of leadership style. If you lead from the front, you lead from the side, or you lead from the back. And there are times, you may prefer to lead from the back, put your team forward, lift them up, let them be the stars. But there are times when you have to come around to the front and you have to take charge. And that's really what we're talking about here. It's in that visibility piece. Leaders need to be visible. Denise Bedell and I talked about how when she stopped hiding behind her clients and started telling her own story, everything changed for her. Her business took off. She had so much more success, and she was leading from that place of visibility. In this area, the takeaway really is be seen. Your story, it's a tool for you to help grow awareness, gain more following, and ultimately grow a bigger business. Lesson number 5 is that, purpose driven profit is the new power. I have spoken to so many of my guests who felt called to the business that they started. Impact and profit are not opposites. We see that women are bringing them together, and that purpose, having purpose driven businesses, gives us an edge. And we should never discount that. And I think, I've seen from the guests that I've had, I've seen, Christy Harold. She has culture and play as a business strategy. And, she saw it as a path to a stronger community. It wasn't just about revenue. And yes, Jam Sports, her business runs like evening soccer leagues and sports leagues in communities all over North America, for people who want to have camaraderie, community, fitness, sport in their lives. And it means, if you can get people playing, it builds stronger community. And so Christy was very driven by, her big, gorgeous goal of 1 million people playing. And that really has driven her business forward. The purpose driven, getting 1 million people playing. I think it's an amazing example of how a big, gorgeous goal can come together with purpose and help a business drive forward to bigger and bigger successes. I think also, you know, Dion Laszlo Baker, who came on and talked about making healthier snacks for kids and how she went about that and how she really pivoted her career as a scientist to making food that was healthy, delicious, organic, and the idea was a really simple one. The idea is if it's not good for kids, why sell it? And her whole business began on that foundational premise. And now, she has a really large business. She's all over North America. Her products are delicious. And, it all came from that purpose of healthier snacks for kids that taste delicious. I also think about Dr. Joan Fallon with her medication for children with autism and the bland diet that they eat, the beige diet, because they are missing an enzyme and they can't digest a lot of things. And so, very purpose driven. I don't think Joan Fallon would have told you she would ever be an entrepreneur in her life. And yet she felt so called with her discovery in science to build a business and get on what is a very long path to approval of the drug and all of the things that go with that. And so I think, when I think about all of this, purpose leads, profit follows, the things that these women have said. And I think, it's really important to think about how your values lead you forward and how we start businesses that align with our values and knowing what our values are, because they don't need to hold us back. They should not hold us back. We need them to help us lead forward. So 5 lessons. It's so amazing to me. So, and just to recap, right? So our first lesson, number 1, is, leadership is learned through letting go. And I think there's some great examples of that throughout the different episodes, with Hilary Parnell, Marla Coffin, Erica McKay, talking about how they let go to grow bigger businesses. Lesson number 2, reinvention is required even after big success. I am a living example of that. And I think Sarah Michelle Bowes and Anya Aliev are also, have some really great commentary about it. Mandy Frank-Gigliotti is another great episode for that one. Lesson 3, our shifts in belief precede our shifts in business. So, so important. We have to find the belief within ourselves, the conviction in what we're doing, and then we will find the transformation that we are looking for. And I think, Arian Ashley, Lori Rogers, Mandy Frank-Gigliotti, we see great examples of that throughout the episodes. Lesson number 4, visibility isn't vanity. It's a leadership tool. Tell the story of your business. Get out there. Make sure people know about you. And, more, if you want to learn more, listen to the episodes Anna Via McLean, Tara Stubbins, or Denise Bedell, among others. But, those 3, be seen. Your story is a tool for the success of your business. And lesson 5, purpose-driven profit is the new power. Those great ladies, Christy Harrell, Dr. Dion Laszlo Baker, and Dr. Joan Fallon are doing amazing things in this world. And I know that so many of us are. And I think that, leaning into our values to help us move forward and letting them guide where we go in the world is such a crucial, crucial thing. So, after all of that, here is my invitation to you. What lesson do you need to integrate right now? What belief do you have that's ready to shift? And what values are you going to lean on to guide your next big move? If you want a space to explore those questions, download the Figure 8 Reflection Workbook. It's designed to help you pause, reflect, and recommit to your own growth. You can grab it at julieellis.ca/bookshop. Thank you for being a part of the first 50 episodes. I can't wait to walk with you into what's next. Until next time. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you won't miss any episodes when they drop. Figure 8 isn't just a podcast. It's a way of seeing the big, gorgeous goals of women entrepreneurs coming to life. If you're interested in learning more, you can find my book, Big Gorgeous Goals, on my website at www.julieellis.ca/bookshop. That is also a place you can find out more about my growth and leadership training programs. And I'd love to hear from you. I'm thinking about the next era of Figure 8 and where we can take this. I'd love to know what things you want to learn, what you like the most, and what changes you think I could make. I'm so excited to bring you a new season of Figure 8 in 2026. See you again soon.